So you finally decided to try out the Archer vocation in Dragon's Dogma 2, only to find out that you've fallen in love. Archer is able to kickflip off enemies, ground stomp Saurians into the ground, and knock down anything from range. Enjoy explosive arrows that trivialize the toughest monsters. Enjoy poison that annihilates bosses and stops their every move. Or send about 80 spiraling arrows into a dragon only for him to lie crying on the ground. I tested every skill from this Archer vocation, and here is what I found. Linsean Sight is your sniper option. You aim down your bow with extreme range. As your stamina drains, you line up your shot and release with precision. This shot is incredibly accurate, and when aimed at vitals is a very solid way of starting combat. However, there is something to be said for this skill's control, and it is abysmal at best. If your target even moves in the slightest, you're going to miss. The range at which you need to use this effectively is very far, meaning you're almost always going to be too close. And when you're too close, you can't move the reticle fast enough to hit your shots. It is kind of weird because in the first game, this exact skill was one of your best skills for the assassin class. You could snipe a dragon in the heart before it saw you and deal about 6 health bars worth of damage. Now the thing just does kind of okay damage. Even a large vital shot from the shadows doesn't offer enough damage to warrant the surprise attack. Ideally, you're going to select Linsean Sight when you're attempting to get rid of smaller foes without actually engaging them. Dealing with harpies this way can be a major advantage sometimes. Sadly, the feel of each shot is unsatisfying and in no way your best option. Incendiary Shot is a special skill from this class that requires its own type of arrows. You need to buy these essentially tarring arrows from shops for a not too expensive price. After tying up a small package to your arrow, you're going to let it fly, sticking to the target. Once shot, this is going to explode, applying a tar-like substance to the entire big monster or small group of enemies. And there are some fun benefits from this status. Tarred enemies can be hit by any fire source to instantly light them ablaze, dealing damage over time, and elemental damage, which lets you easily exploit enemy weaknesses. Tarred enemies also seem to be much more susceptible to stagger and knockdowns, as they are, covered in a wet substance and more likely to slip after being hit. As an archer, you can also activate this while attached to monsters, climbing them I mean. And while this is cool, there's almost never any reason to climb anything as an archer, just shoot it from afar, but at least you still have that option. You do need to shoot the attached arrow in order to actually activate the tar, and this really isn't that hard to do at all. The advantage of the skill is it's going to be really good early on when your actual damage is super low, and something like this could greatly speed up monster fights, especially against griffins since they're quite weak to fire. But the biggest issue here is that Erupting Shot is far better, to the point where you're just wasting your time running it, and running both of the skills just feels excessive. I did make use of my Erupting Shot skill to activate this burning from the tar, which can be fun, but the best benefit here is helping you knock over enemies faster, and that's about it. Overall, it's incredibly weak compared to some of the other archer skills. Heavenly Shot is the master skill for the Archer vocation, and while you might be surprised to see it this low on the list, just be aware it's in fact one of the worst master skills in the game. So the skill has you kneel down charging up one massive shot. Your stamina begins to drain, and the more stamina drained, the more damage the arrow deals. Once you eventually release this arrow, it shoots forward with extremely high damage and knockdown. The ideal way to play this is to aim for vitals on big monsters. Wasting each shot on small enemies is not good, as you're going to be out of stamina constantly, and that's not really enjoyable. And while this is not stated on the skill itself, your damage is clearly higher if you release just as your stamina reaches 0. And the thing that's weird about this is that even though you don't have to use all your stamina for each shot, it's gonna use it all anyway. Towards the end, when I started using this a lot more and tried timing it correctly, I saw some crazy power. 1 or 2 health bars worth of damage in a single arrow ain't half bad. But once again, usability is extremely important, and Heavenly Shot requires way too much effort for what it's worth. Long charge time, needs really solid aim, wastes all your stamina no matter what, and can very easily underperform if not shot in time. I love the possibilities for it, as you can instantly stagger anything in the game, but rarely is that going to happen. Now, all that being said, please give all of your archer pawns Heavenly Shot. The pawn AI will use this often and almost never miss, giving you very nice knockdown and damage that seemingly comes out of nowhere. And now only your pawn is out of stamina and not you. Huge potential from a Heavenly Shot, but it can very easily disappoint. Tempest Shot is quite possibly my favorite skill from Archer. It holds you in place and starts to rapidly fire a great number of arrows, plinking away at anything in front of you. If you don't know, archers can either manually aim all your shots and skills or have the game auto-target for you. Your damage is actually higher when you manually aim, but it's much harder to hit your target. Tempest Shot is virtually unusable with manual aim as it's always going to miss too many arrows. However, this is one skill that performs exceptionally well with the auto aim. Fire away and it's not only going to shoot your target with every arrow, but switch targets on its own, which allows you to blindly fire accurate shots into all the enemies approaching you. Even up to 7 targets can be fended off by this, as each just has enough pushback to stop the advance. And since you fire so rapidly, the targets are all going to be defeated quickly. Tempest Shot is in fact Archer's best skill for harpies, as the tracking goes right towards the flying beasts even if they're moving rapidly. And you're just gunning them down from below. It's quite fun. Sadly, while this is one of my favorite skills, it is very underpowered. When a monster gets knocked down, you can loose about 100 arrows in his face and deal almost no damage. Often the skill is going to target vitals if free aimed, but not every time, and seriously, it just wasn't designed for big monsters. No, this is to keep lesser enemies busy and deal with them in an efficient way, as the skill can be fired to use up about 1/3 of your stamina, yet only uses a small bit per arrow. Easy to control how much you use and easy to keep going for some time if necessary. A very underpowered skill in terms of damage, but the utility and rapid fire makes it nice to have sometimes. Manifold Shot is the most basic bow skill you have. The ability fires 3 rapid arrows with high damage. That's literally it. While this might sound sort of dull, the damage is very solid. No matter who you use it on, the damage will be very nice. Stunning back all small enemies and targeted vitals on monsters make short work of them. Sort of your all-rounder skill that never underperforms, but also never overachieves either. There's nothing special here with 3 arrows being shot over and over. No like tenfold flurry action from the first game, no crazy movement or effect offered either. Just a simple archer shooting targets, which is fine. You're likely going to use this a lot early on, as it works great with both targeting systems. Me personally, I would move away from it when you get other options, as there are better skills for group control and even better skills for monster damage. Can't really go wrong with it though, as the stamina usage is very easy to manage. Performed well against the goat head of a chimera without requiring really any effort from me at all. Knockus Shot is one of the only 2 ways to apply poison, at least as far as I'm aware. Another ability from Archer that requires special arrows to use. You're going to buy these from any blacksmith. They're not easy to acquire, as blighting arrows are the most expensive at 2,000 gold each, and most merchants only hold about a maximum of 6 at any given time. Probably a bit easier to craft from 1 withered branch and 1 asp tax scale, and 1 withered branch and 1 poison pinion. These are the hardest arrows to acquire, so why is that the case? Once fired, the arrow will instantly burst upon impact with a target. No need to shoot the arrow for an explosion or anything like that. This explosion is going to coat that target with a toxin, which either does no damage at all or so little you can barely tell. However, if you fire a second poison arrow at an already poisoned target, they're going to take an excessive amount of damage over time. The effect only lasts a couple of seconds, but that poison begins to eat at your enemy with extreme malice, making them very good for damage in certain cases. In reality though, you're still going to deal more damage faster with other options or just shooting the target. Amazing if you're having trouble with a single monster, but not nearly as good as erupting shots, which are way cheaper to use. No, the benefit of Knockus Shot is it's going to instantly stop any enemy from doing all tasks. For some reason, when an enemy is poisoned, they completely stop all actions for just a second. This is going to knock dragons out of all annoying castings such as meteors, lightning, roars, and slam downs. It also instantly drops all flying enemies out of the sky, mainly dragons and griffins, meaning you can easily control all of the tougher fights and keep dragons on the ground, which is very nice indeed. The expensive nature of Knockus arrows means you won't have a ton of them to waste and therefore won't equip this skill often, but for any serious fight, it's going to trivialize the encounter, so do keep it in mind. Deathly Arrow is the skill I originally thought was Archer's best option. It charges up a high-powered arrow that is released with tremendous force. On impact, it deals massive stagger and damage. What I did not realize for the longest time is that this is a hidden release mechanic. If you manage to let go of the arrow just as the glow on your character takes place, or when you fully charge the arrow, you're gonna glow golden and nearly double the impact and damage of Deathly Arrow. This requires such tight and specific timing that you might not even know it exists like I didn't. And even once you find out about the timing, you may find it difficult to replicate, especially in the midst of battle. You don't actually need to use the charge timing, as normal shots are still very powerful and work well most of the time, even managing to knock the Medusa out of her gaze in only 1 or 2 shots. For some reason, Deathly Arrow is like really terrible once enemies are knocked down. It seems to deal less damage when hitting vitals this way, making it much better to get enemies into positions for other skills to perform well. The worst thing about this class's master skill is that Deathly Arrow is just way better. The stamina usage is far less, with an ability that's sort of a mini version of that one. Amazing option here that will give you an advantage early on and still wallop enemies later as well. My only complaint is that the cool golden power shot is far too difficult to pull off. Just feels a bit unnecessary to make the timing so specific, but hey, your reward is practically a guaranteed win, so at least there's that. Deluging shot is another skill that requires specific arrows in order to use. This idea is kind of annoying at times, but each of the skills are very powerful to make up for that extra equipment requirement. Deluging shot requires drenching arrows, which again are bought at blacksmiths or crafted with withered branches and surubwort leaves. You can buy 20 of them from a vendor at any time, and each costs 100 gold. Not cheap early on, but really not that expensive either. And this works the same way as incendiary shot. You're gonna fire an arrow that has a contraption tied to it. If you shoot the arrow after it's been attached to a monster, it explodes, this time making your target wet. You can also use this while climbing, which is mostly pointless, but again, you can use this for some cool style points occasionally. Now, why on earth would you want to wet your target? The wet status is actually incredibly powerful, as wet enemies can be frozen very quickly. Once an enemy is frozen, they stop doing whatever they were doing for good and are frozen in place for several seconds. Even works on dragons, which is quite hilarious to see. In order to do this, all you need is a mage enchanting your weapon with a frost enchant. Then 1 to 2 arrows on the wet target is enough to freeze them. For some reason, Deluging shot also speeds up the freezing process, making it happen very quickly compared to when you're just in the rain. Of course, this is only useful if you're using ice enchants. However, there really is no reason not to. Ice, arguably, is the best element in the game overall, dealing good damage to every target and being the best for dragons. Especially for an archer who won't have any other cool elemental bow options, ice is probably your main element. And now you can instantly freeze every enemy in the game whenever you want, opening up monsters for very easy vital shots and stopping them from attacking over half the fight. Requires a bit of effort on your part to make the setup work, but it makes every fight 10 times easier. Cascade shot is the big sleeper skill for Archer. It does seem to be kind of meh and not all that important at first, but it's definitely something you'll want to use at all times. The skill fires 3 shots of 3 arrows, the arrows spread out being able to hit multiple targets. This is your competing skill with Tempest shot. While Tempest quickly shoots all foes while pinned down, Cascade shot lets you freely move, shoot multiple targets, and gain way more damage. You can actually use this as a shotgun ability of sorts. When monsters are downed, get up in their face and shoot 9 arrows in one go. Another advantage you need to consider is the knockdown. With this being good damage in each arrow, you're shooting up to 9 shots fast. That gives you a consistent rate of stagger to push back small enemies and keep bigger foes falling. Of course, Cascade shot is a general use sort of thing. Fire it as much as you want for basic gameplay and switch to something more powerful for bosses. I think it is the most versatile skill for Archer, almost never missing and letting you free aim without killing your damage numbers. Truly amazing for Harpies, although usually only 1 arrow hits as they spread out at further distances. Cascade is also why I don't ever need Manifold Arrow, as this deals very similar damage and is my only horde option as an Archer. Especially effective against dog groups where they want to rush you and run, solid for bandits as well. Basically, anything aggressive gets shut down and the stamina usage is very easy to manage. For Spiral Arrow, I'm probably going to show you mostly just one clip. Usually I like to show a lot of footage to give you different perspectives, but no need this time. With Spiral Arrow, I was able to embarrass a dragon by not only dealing amazing damage to him, but staggering him every few seconds, actually stun-locking this massive beast to death in a very timely fashion. The skill lets loose 1 arrow that whirls around with small AoE. Once hit into an enemy, it's going to sit in that location for some time and deal continuous damage. What this allows you you to do is launch multiple arrows in a row that will all be attacking simultaneously, and in different spots. So for say this dragon here, I have an arrow spinning around in his head, one in his heart, and another wherever I choose. While the damage of each attack is not all that high, you have so much hitting that target at the same time, it easily beats most other skills. And that's the way to use this. Originally, I was not a fan because if you shoot this out thinking one arrow is going to be enough, then it's going to not work well. But once you launch 3 arrows or even more, the spinning stops monsters from being able to do anything at all. Also, the stamina usage is not massive, making this easy to do. Obviously, you want to aim for vital spots for this to work correctly, and it is mainly for those bigger bosses, as smaller targets do get stunned, but Cascade Shot deals with them faster. Not to mention, this has amazing utility options as well. Use it to quickly inflict debilitations, as the many hits will do so in a single shot. And you can throw one of these out to guarantee you hit your attached arrow, such as Erupting Shot or Deluging Shot. Even shooting it out beforehand now allows you to activate your arrows on impact. Spiral Arrow is not quite as strong instantly when compared to Deathly Arrow, but when used repeatedly it gains far more power. One of the very few skills that was good in the first game, but is much better here. Erupting Shot is the final skill that requires arrows to make use of. This one, however, manages to be the most powerful and cheapest of the special arrows. Like the rest, you need to shoot this on an enemy and then hit it with an arrow to explode it. With the Erupting Arrow, you're going to shoot it and get a very large explosion. When used with Incendiary Shot, this makes for instant fire damage. When used without, it's insane damage in general. You can actually attach several of these arrows to one target and then shoot one of them to activate all at once. If you want to make Archer as strong as it can be, then these are the way to go. They instantly defeat the largest monsters in the game, being insane for anything weak to fire. Chimeras, Minotaurs, and Griffins in particular become basic enemies that take about 10 seconds at most to defeat. Dragons are a different story, as they are not weak to fire, meaning it doesn't give you the instant win. However, it still deals often an entire health bar if placed correctly. And yeah, with only 50 gold apiece, you gain the highest damage attack Archer has to offer. I would not really waste these on small enemies, but sometimes it can be useful. Like with Geosaurians, where they have an armor mechanic, you can attach a bomb and just go right through that. Just be aware that once a target's dead, arrows will not stick anymore. A very important tip for facing chimeras, as one shot might kill the lion altogether, and then you won't be able to stick arrows to the lion, confusing you. Aim for, say, the goat head, and now it works just fine. Erupting Shot could make Archer's early game far easier, and once you're in the end game, it's a complete joke. Bosses are not even bosses anymore. If 3 of the Erupting Shots get placed close enough to a vital, all 3 can hit there at once for nuke-like damage. Not convenient all the time, since this does require arrows, but you can easily sleep in town to get shops to resupply and buy as much as you want. Actually, a very broken skill the Archer can use to become more powerful than other vocations that might otherwise outperform him. And there you have every Archer skill ranked in Dragon's Dogma 2. While all of these are pretty much just firing arrows in different ways, each behaves a bit differently. Combine certain options together and you can get more stagger than Warrior, or exploit Erupting Shot to just insta-kill every target you come across. Archer is extremely acrobatic, can take on any target from range, and makes one of the best pawns available. I personally would use Cascade Shot, Spiral Arrow, Deathly Arrow, and Erupting Shot for my perfect setup, giving you 2 skills for damage, 2 that deal very strong stagger, and 1 to shotgun blast the groups away. Or throw in Tempest Shot, because machine gunning arrows will never not be fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and learned a bit more about this Archer vocation. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.